Donald Trump Jr. aptly called it, quote, T-PAC. And as Senator Ted Cruz put it,
Donald J. Trump ain't going anywhere.
CNN's Jim Acosta was on the ground at CPAC today, where former President Trump is expected to resurrect his false claims in his headline speech this weekend, his first since leaving office, and he filed this report.
Look around this year's Conservative Political Action Conference.
T-PAC. That's what it feels like, guys.
And it's clear much of the Republican Party still sees Donald Trump as something of a golden goose that will lead the GOP back to the White House.
I think he was the greatest president that's lived.
Despite Trump's role in the bloody siege at the Capitol on January 6th,
if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
CPAC's chief organizer, Matt Schlapp, handed the former president a prime speaking slot, closing out the conference Sunday.
I like the fact that he wants to stay engaged. Now, you can say that he lost the election, but his supporters, 73 million.
Well, he did lose the election.
You can say that he lost the election, and
he did lose the election.
Yeah, but I'm not quibbling that.
But Schlapp insists Trump shouldn't be held responsible for the deadly insurrection.
He gave a speech, and then there was a violent insurrection at the Capitol.
How
is that not true?
You simply don't know what you're talking about.
Great. Why don't you put a mask on?
After our interview, some CPAC attendees became irate, many of them refusing to believe Trump incited any violence.
Don't you feel Trump is at all responsible for that?
No, not at all. No. Not at all.
Do you still believe that Donald Trump won the election?
Yes.
And still believing his big lie that he won the election, a falsehood the former president is expected to repeat this weekend.
No. What did he do? I mean, he's out there doing a rally. I mean, you got a bunch of nutcases going out there.
Trump's presence is overshadowing the other presidential wannabes at the conference, like Senator Ted Cruz, who made light of his trip to Cancun while his constituents were freezing to death in Texas.
I gotta say, Orlando is awesome. It's not as nice as Cancun, but it's nice. In the immortal words of William Wallace, freedom!
This chaotic post-presidency has twisted the GOP into a pretzel, with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell saying he could support another Trump campaign.
The nominee of the party? Absolutely.
Even though he just condemned the former president right after his impeachment trial.
President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day.
And we should note there are sessions at this conference dedicated to advancing Trump's big lie that he won the election. We should also note that Senator Josh Hawley was defending his role in his attempts to overturn the election results. He got a standing ovation for that. And there was some COVID denialism going on at this CPAC this year, Jake. At one point, the organizers urged the audience to remember to put on their masks. Because they did that, some in the crowd actually booed those organizers for just trying to practice some COVID safety. Jake?
I hope you're triple maxing, Jim. Masking, rather. Triple masking. Okay.
Absolutely.
Good. Jim Acosta in Orlando, thank you so much. Our next guest is a veteran who says that his illness was a result of exposure to the same toxic source that President Biden says he believes led to his son Beau's fatal brain cancer. That's coming up. Stay with us. To our buried lead now, that's what we call stories that we feel deserve more attention. This one, the Supreme Court could move on this coming Monday. An Army veteran who says his debilitating respiratory illness was caused by a burn pit long used by the military to destroy everything from old clothes and electronics to human waste. Over decades, more than 3 million veterans may have been exposed to the toxic fumes that are emitted from these sites, according to the Department of Veterans Affairs. Now, President Biden has said that he suspects a burn pit led to his son Beau's fatal brain cancer. I want to bring in Army Reserve veteran Captain Leroy Torres. It's his case that the U.S. Supreme Court is right now deciding whether or not to take up. Captain Torres, Leroy, it's good to see you. It's been more than 12 years since you served in Iraq near a large burn pit north of Baghdad, yet you say you're still suffering from the exposure to that burn pit. How so?
Hi, good afternoon, Jake. Thank you for having me on. It has been a very detrimental, been a long battle. Here in 2018, I was diagnosed with a toxic brain injury, so it's been one thing after another. Following my lung biopsy in 2010, it has been a constant battle for specialized health care, but we continue to press on.
And you say that you were forced to resign from your job as a Texas state trooper because of your lung condition, and it's that separation as a state-level employee that's coming before the Supreme Court that they're going to decide and announce on Monday whether they're going to hear the case. You've been fighting for this issue for years. Could this case be a breakthrough?
Absolutely, Jake. Definitely, depending on Monday morning's decision and the response, that it will, according to the Reserve Organization of America, it'll be over 1,000 cases that it will help other veterans that are citizen warriors that are serving dual roles, that will also help their case as well, that have their jobs have been compromised or affected by illness or injury following war.
Comedian Jon Stewart, who is a big advocate for this cause, works with your organization and your wife's organization called Burn Pits 360. I talked a few weeks ago with your wife and with Jon Stewart about this, and he said that money is the main reason why the VA denies most of the disability claims related to these toxic burn pits. Take a listen.
The way this country has gone to war, we've always had endless funds to wage war and no funds for the consequences of war to the war fighter when they come home. And that has to change.
That has to change. Stewart, at the time, along with your wife, were promoting a Senate bill to help expand health care options for veterans exposed to these burn pits. Is there any new traction on that issue now that there's a new Congress and President Biden in office, and he thinks that his son Beau got fatal brain cancer because of a burn pit in Iraq?
Absolutely. And just earlier had opportunity to speak with Jon Stewart for a few minutes briefly, and just assured me that he's still in the fight. And now with President Biden on board, and hopefully now that he will support this issue, because it's long overdue, and it's just crazy how it's affected so many veterans and their families as well.
This country has a very long and sad history of turning its back on those who fight for us, who go to war because our leaders on our behalf send people like you. Leroy Torres, we are with you, and we will be watching the Supreme Court on Monday. Best of luck, and say hi to your wife for us.
Will do, Jay. Thank you again. Take care.
Finally, the coronavirus pandemic has robbed us of loved ones and community heroes, and Lee County, Virginia, has recently lost a giant. Richard Garrett was a 65-year-old police officer, educator, Little League coach, husband, and grandfather. He served his hometown for 40 years. His son, Keith, tells us that he was the kind of guy that would give you his last dollar. Garrett was tragically diagnosed with coronavirus on Christmas Day, and he lost his fight a month later. As the Garrett family stood around his final resting place, fellow first responders turned up their radios to hear his final call.
Police Central, Team 261. Rest easy, brother. We'll take it from here. 261, clear from service.
May his memory be a blessing. Our deepest condolences to his friends and to his family. This Sunday morning, join CNN State of the Union. My co-anchor, Dana Bash, will talk to Dr. Anthony Fauci, to White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, to Republican Senator from Louisiana Bill Cassidy, to Democratic Senator Chris Coons from Delaware, and to California Congresswoman Karen Bass. That's at 9 a.m. and noon Eastern. Our coverage on CNN continues right now. I will see you Monday morning.